Welcome to episode 2 of season 6 of Whole Lot of Wolves. I'm Joshua Buckley with co-host Paul LePage.
Hello.
Danny Paletti on socials in Baltimore.
Hi.
And joining us once again from Fort Lauderdale, the future mayor, Chris Fischer. How's it going, Chris?
Hello, constituents. How are you?
You were running for something. Did you get that?
City commissioner. You know, I had a kid in the process, kind of came up a little bit short, but we'll make another run next year.
Okay. We need more fundraising. Maybe you can take some tips if she on fundraising. So, guys, let's get straight to it. It was a difficult one. Man City 4, Wolves 0. Firstly, before kickoff, there was a great tribute to Diogo Jota that was on display in the South Bank. We didn't get to see it. Thanks a lot, NBC. But the club did share it in all of its glories. Paul, what were your thoughts?
Like an amazing job well done. And the whole beauty of that was that the whole influence, the whole creation was fan-led. So deeply from the heart, extremely reflective of the whole fan base. Thanks to the team that put that together. They did. Every fan in the ground, every fan around the world watching such a tribute. It was amazing.
Chris, these are the type of things that really make us proud to be Wolves fans, right?
Absolutely. I mean, just the fact of Diogo Jota's wife coming back, Ruben Neves being on hand, Diogo's family, Andre's family being there. You know, that is the nice thing about Wolverhampton. Even when we go over there as Americans and experiencing it, it's that sense of community, that sense of family, and to be able to draw these people in, to lure them back. I think it not only pulled at the heartstrings and such an exceptional job that was done by the fan base, as you said, Josh, it being fan-led, but also just the fact that it was an emotional moment. He was such an impactful player to lead Wolves to where they are right now. And it really was it was a beautiful thing to see.
Wolves fans may be masochists, but we're classy masochists. So, first off, you could say it was a contest until the 30-minute mark, Paul. You know, heavy pressure for City, but Wolves really looked a threat. Looked like we had a goal with Manetzi. Unfortunately, he was offsides. That tended to be a little bit of a theme there. But 2 quick goals, first by Holland and then by Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, effectively sealed the game, and that was reinforced in the second half with Holland striking again, bench making it 4-0. Paul, what can you take from this match?
I'm taking 2 things, and it'll pop up at various times as we discuss it. But there's a huge asterisk that much of this was against Manchester City and the millions and millions of dollars that they've got in their team. But to counter that, this is something I sent, and I rarely send anything to my brother back in England after a loss, but I sent this, and then I saw it quickly shared similarly by fans on the socials as well afterwards, is that we look like a championship team that just got promoted. So undercooked, weak, rabbit in the headlights from some of those making debuts, silly mistakes that get absolutely punished when you're up against the likes of Haaland and those stars that are across the 11 for Man City. So I was always thinking to myself, you know, we'll have a pretty decent transfer window all told if the first game of the season Manetzi's not starting. I'm fine if he's on the bench. I want those legs towards the end of the game to close it out or to add an extra body to the midfield. And it's no disrespect on him because he did exactly what was asked for him on Saturday. But putting all of that together as it stands right now, it's a failure of a transfer window, and it's a failure of 8 years in the EPL that we're putting out a team like that on the first game of the season.
So I did see some people, and I completely disagreed with it, blaming Vitor for this with the tactics in the lineup. Danny, I felt I was a little surprised Arias didn't start, and that was the only one where I was like, maybe. But you actually had a good point on why you thought he didn't start.
I mean, obviously, I think it's fair to say he was playing it safe. But I think in general, just, wanting to have that, that engine and that pressing that Munetzi can do. And also, we did see in that first half hour how him and Strand Larson can play off each other quite well. I do think that the plain, explanation for Arias not starting is that he was in the middle of his season already, and then that got interrupted by the Club World Cup, and then traveling to a different continent to play football with his family. These are all good enough reasons to say, let's not throw him in the deep end playing City at home on the first day. I think he'll be starting, before too long, maybe even this weekend. But it's just, maybe it was just a bit too soon. And I think a big part of it is probably Vitor, wanting to go into this game and trying to keep things solid and playing a starting 11 that looked a lot like our starting 11 from last year, apart from the wing backs, and having that sort of safety. It sort of worked out that way for the first half hour. And then it really kind of went in and out for the rest of the game.
Chris, I know me and you have talked about this separately. This just drives us crazy that in soccer, in the EPL, they think it's perfectly fine to just not have a preseason with all your players. It's like, oh, wait till the end of the transfer window. And we don't see this in American sports. Like, you brought up, but what if the New York Giants were like, hey, guys, don't worry. Our starting running back will be here by the end of the first month. You just got to trust us. And it seemed like that was kind of what Vitor was left with. He had some new guys, but like Arias really hasn't been bedded in because he came in pretty late.
Yeah, and it's not just Arias. It's Muller Wolf who got his start and then, saw a first half minutes. He even said it in the post-match that this team, it showed signs against City, but they're not all on the same page. The timing's not there yet. I don't even think, if you looked and go back to Paul's point about how they were playing, Vitor said in the post-match that he wanted them to take risks after that first goal, knowing that they had to play catch-up, and Man City capitalized on it. And unfortunately, Agbadou was a big portion of that. And I'm sure we'll come on to it, but when you bring in your players this late, not only does it not give the manager an open opportunity to see what they're capable of, but also that timing is well thrown off. You're not at your best. When you have a club like City that has, Pep said it in his post-match, that they have so much talent, he doesn't know what he can do with it all. I think this game that Fosun and Jeff Shee in particular has been playing, to be the self-sustainability. We have to sell in order to add players to the club. I understand that, okay? It's a business thing. It always has been a business thing. It feels like Fosun's goal is only to stay in the Premier League, and that's it. But at the same token, you're handicapping yourself come August and September every year, and now you're having to fight back. And we've seen the last 3 years this same situation where they have to fight out of a hole early in the season. The one thing that they don't think about in this, I hate to say it, I'm going to say bullshit because that's what it is the fact that they have to. The fan base is so geared up for a season to start. Now you've ticked them off. Now you're not going to get as many people buying as much merchandise and tickets and things of that nature. I don't think they take all that into consideration when they're making these late moves. And it just starts at the top with Jeff Shee.
Man, you're a new dad and you're still dropping bullshit.
I know.
Shame. Don't worry. You can say bullshit as much as you want to avoid the E. It's only the F word we only get one on. Keep count there. You mentioned Agbadou. Paul, Agbadou played more like Agbadoo. Do we have a problem right now? What is going on with somebody who we didn't even consider would be an issue heading into this season?
I'm going to put that one down on Saturday as that caveat of getting punished by an elite forward line. I think he's not in form, but he'll come around. I think he'll be a better test for him based on his form when we see who he comes up against on Saturday away at Bournemouth.
Danny, you've kind of seen the inklings of this coming, though, during the preseason. You've mentioned it a couple times, like Agbadou just hasn't looked like himself.
Yeah, I mean, he just has seemed kind of lethargic the whole time, and I think that, like, to a certain extent, he does tend to play a bit sort of, let's say, loose. He takes a lot of risks, whether it's in possession or with his passing or whatever, and it kind of just didn't come off this weekend. So, like, I think during preseason, I was perfectly happy to just say it's preseason. These things happen, and we're still getting up to fitness. You're kind of hoping to see another level in this game, especially against City at home. And he didn't really show that. But again, it can kind of just be a blip. But it is just, it's not so much like that I'm worried about Agbadou suddenly dropping off a cliff. Players don't tend to do that, especially when they're sort of in their prime. But it's more just like the overall like vibe of the squad right now, is just kind of a bit quiet, sort of avoiding these sort of combative scenarios, and things just aren't coming off for them. And that's frustrating when we're not getting that many chances to begin with. And then it feels like the chances that we do take just kind of don't ever come off for us.
Well, we did have one new player start in the starting 11, and that was Mueller-Wolf. What did you feel about his performance, Chris? I felt like defensively it was pretty solid. Now, it was concerning he came out after the match and was like, oh, yeah, I'm doing stuff I've never done before in my career. That's a little dicey, but, I mean, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't bad.
No, I think he showed the athleticism that he has, and we saw it coming off the wing quite a bit. Defensively, he looked pretty good. I think that, his, like I was suggesting earlier, his post-game comments really speaks to the fact of finding out when he's able to double team and, he's able to draw another defender in. Maybe it's Toti or Joao Gomez coming back to give support at that time, or whether he can play up the field, up the pitch, I should say. So I would take away from it was it's somebody who's getting their feet underneath him within the Premier League, and you're going up against a monster in Man City, especially that forward line. So it's tough treading, it's moving leagues, moving towns, like you said earlier, abruptly, getting thrown into the fire because we sign players so late. You don't get that training. You don't get that knowledge on how you're anticipated to play. So I could see why he said he's doing things he's never done before, because it is a new system to him. But I think he also gave us glimpses of what he's capable of, and even adding to that game, the more comfortable he gets within the Prem.
So another addition, he's been on the team, even though Vitor Pereira had no clue he was on the squad at all. Keanu Hoover did start at right wing back. Whether that's going to be a permanent position remains to be seen. But Paul, a lot of eyes on him in this match. How'd you feel he did?
I thought he did all right. Again, a little to what Chris was saying, like athleticism's there, got up and down the wing. Doku started strong, but it seemed to clamp him down a little, so there wasn't that much. Well, there was a threat, and we were under pressure a lot, but it wasn't like a constant stream coming from our right side. I think with, like, if there's competition for that wing back spot, which there well could be, and he's happy to be in the squad, maybe coming off the bench or generally challenging, I'm quite content with it, because hopefully the kid's got his head straight and he's developed during the time that he's been away on loan. He's matured, all that stuff. If we were talking now about potentially picking up a youngish right back from the French league who'd done pretty well last season, got a number of appearances and everything for, I don't know, 12 to 15 million, you'd probably be like rubbing your hands together thinking, yeah, this is exactly the type of squad strengthening that we need. So if he puts performances like that on a regular basis and cements a spot in the squad and he challenges, I'm all right with it.
See, Paul, that concerns me, though, because I don't think he's really up for. Sometimes it's like in baseball, Chris, we say 4A player, where there's guys that are above the AAA level, but not quite major league. I'm kind of worried Keanu Hoover fits in that way above championship, but not quite Premier League. So that does concern me that, and it's true. We'd be looking at it and going, hey, yeah, look at this guy that we got. Oh, this is a good value, blah, blah, blah.
And Josh, you and I were tweeting back and forth, or whatever you want to say, Xing back and forth.
Tweeting.
There you go. Let's just go with that. During the match. And, Kajana gave the ball up quite a bit, especially in the first half. A couple of sloppy passes there. I understand he's got to work his way into it. There's going to be a bit of nerves back in the Premier League again. But at the same token, he's a veteran by now. We've seen what he's capable of. And oftentimes, if you're a fan base, you get tired of seeing the same thing over and over and, expecting something new to happen, kind of Fabio Silva-like. So I think I'm glad they're focusing on bringing somebody in to play right back, because I think not only does he need competition, and I was hoping Pedro Lima would be the guy to do it, or Rodrigo Gomez to make a run at it. But I just think at this point we need to move on from him. I think he is more of a Championship League player, or, going over to League One or something of that nature where it better suits his game. I saw Nathan Judah's text during the match as I was going through things, getting ready for this podcast. And he says, Hoover wasn't that bad. And I was like, is that to the level of what Wolves are? We're just not that bad. That's what's, a couple of years ago, Man City was scared to come into Molineux. And they didn't play with like they had any fear of facing this team.
I will say, I think Hoover's got a much better attitude than when he first came in here. And that's a lot with going on loan and maturity. He seems to be really trying and going out there. But I do think as well, that's one reason Doc is playing right center back still, even as Mascara starts getting healthy, because you need somebody with Doc with that experience that's going to cover for Hoover on the mistakes that are going to happen. Danny, Jose saw not his best game. Did you feel like some of those shots could have been stopped?
Yeah, like you said, not his best game, but I also think far from his worst.
Yes.
I saw a lot of people pointing out that actually, his normal weak spot, his distribution was actually pretty good.
It was actually really good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a couple of the shots that went in, obviously probably could have gotten closer to if he was, really performing at the sort of peak that we know for him. But also, I think I saw that he didn't actually make any saves, which means that like each one of the shots that went against him was one that went in the goal. So it's just like, he wasn't getting those kind of like those touches during the game where it's like, okay, I've got this now, and so like each time is a situation where you have to get something on it or it's going to be scored. And so that's a rough place to be in. I think that's very much one that I'm inclined to say, this game is a gimme, especially for him. And I'm not particularly worried about him having a slightly off day against one of the most potent attacks in the league.
Paul, we still have Sam Johnston, who I don't think we can give away for 2 sticks of bubblegum right now. Do they call it bubblegum in the UK? Is that?
Yeah, bubblegum. Yeah, chewing gum's more common.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like, though, we'll get into it later, that Fosun can only focus on one position at a time, apparently, when recruiting. But would you like to see another keeper come in?
No, bigger priorities elsewhere. I think Sarr, and even to the extent of Sam Johnson, and I think I've put it out there previously, they are both perfectly competent goalkeepers for a lower middle to bottom third team in the EPL. And again, rightly or wrongly, where we are right now, that is fine, and it should be enough. But really, what we need, what we should have had coming, is that greater growth in that position. The upgrade on Rui Patricio should have been someone of equal or not even better standing over a period of time of development. So right now, let's get the other holes filled. That's a topic for a different day, because with the right amount of confidence in his game, decent defense in front of him, he's okay.
Danny, you know, I've been talking on Twitter. I'm a big James Trafford fan. I feel like he did a really good job. There were probably a couple chances Wolves may have scored against a lot of other keepers. In my mind, if he got all the starts, he'd be a top 5 keeper in the Premier League. I think they can get rid of Ederson and not worry about it. Am I crazy?
You might be a bit crazy, but you also might not get to find out because Donnarumma might be coming in to...
Which is crazy to me. Like, you just
Yeah.
paid that much money for Trafford, and he looked great.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens, unfortunately. And I think to Paul's point, I think what's frustrating is that it feels like we've been playing footsie with like young keepers for the last like 4 years. Like ever since it was sort of assumed that John Ruddy would move on, there were always these rumors in every window that, oh, here's this young keeper we're interested in. Kelleher came up a bunch of times. I don't think any of them were ever like solid, work being done on them. But it's just frustrating that then when we had a chance to do that after John Ruddy left, we went for a keeper in Bentley who's I think only a year younger than Saw. And then we quickly found out, he's probably not going to get to that level that we need. And he doesn't have that. Time is not on his side. And then, of course, we let Gary O'Neill and Neil Cutler decide on Sam Johnstone, and maybe Matt Hobbs had something to do with that as well. But just a crazy choice, which we don't need to relitigate here. But just again, like all these keepers who are all in the sort of same age bracket. And it was perfectly fine to say like, okay, John Ruddy's around. He's a great person in the dressing room. He's an adequate cup keeper, perfectly fine. He's leaving now. Why do we not find, a young, talented keeper who can sort of be groomed into being the next number one? I mean, it speaks to an issue that Wolves are having, across all positions at the moment, but just kind of especially frustrating, especially since, up until a few days ago, we had 4 goalkeepers on our wages.
Let's pour one out for Tom King.
Yep. Who's going to protect the squad from Swans now?
Yeah. I did feel like Vitor was kind of getting Tom King prepared for after playing role. I mean, the match I was at, he apparently gave the pregame speech and, 3-0 with a Saw penalty save. So let's talk about impact off the bench. Obviously, we talked about Arias for Lopez came in, 2 new wingbacks. Adam Levine on our comments, since we are broadcasting live on Facebook, he said, should Arias be starting next game? I think so, Chris, because of how he looked when he came in. I mean, again, he looks a threat every time he gets it.
Yeah, and obviously what we saw in the preseason, he can finish as well. So I think he adds that speed and impact component up front. Obviously, Manetzi does too, but the guy can't manage to stay on side. So I think Arias should get a start up there, whether it's filling in for Bellegarde or for Manetzi in that case, and he'll bring a ton of experience and give us probably a different look. Somebody that can take somebody on 1v1 that we seem to be lacking right now with this club. So, and obviously because you lose players like Anyori and Cunha, that's going to be lacking. But he definitely brings that over, and he was an impactful player when he got onto the pitch in relief against City. So against Bournemouth, I would expect him to be in the starting 11.
Paul, any of the subs catch your eye, catch your fancy?
Not really. Again, there were some flashes like Bueno and Rodrigo at least brought like some energy and a little bite and a little forward intent, which was good. But again, this is like the challenge that you get when you're 2-0 down to City. You more often than not on a hiding to nothing. So you can take bits, but there was no one that really stood out and thinking they made a huge difference and got the shirt to start next weekend. All
right, guys. Now let's look at a big reason why everybody wants to listen. Our thoughts on the transfer window. Jackson Chichua, bless you.
Well done, Joe.
He seems to be on his way for 12.5 million euros. Danny, I'm sure I didn't get that name right. So in that case, I think we need a nickname for him. So we're going to each come up with one nickname, and I want you to put a Twitter poll on it. Danny, what would be your nickname choice?
Well, it's really going to be dependent on, what type of player he is. But if he's inclined to rile up the opposition or the opposing fans, then chat shit might have to enter the chat, so to speak.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Chris?
I'm going to go with Tito Jackson Chichua, just because with Tito's background of being a Wolves fan.
That's right.
But, Tito and Chichua would actually not be a bad little nickname for him. But, yeah, that's my selection there.
Okay, Paul?
I'm taking a guess at his body structure, but just based on the term, I'm going for Chichua the Tank.
The Tank. I like it. I thought Black Panther reminds me too much of T'Challa. So, Wakanda forever. That's what we're going with. And Molyneux forever. He was apparently the fastest player in the Italian league, which then our great producer Alex looked it up, and that would be like Harvey Elliott speed. So yeah, okay, maybe that's a little slower league. Stu from the fan cast in our little group chat had the best thing. He said, "Oh, he's super fast with probably not an end product. He can hear me over here already ordering the jersey." Probably true. Probably true. I love speed. If you're not first, you're last.
You never gonna see Paul get that with all those letters on the last name.
Paul, what are overall your thoughts? Is this somebody that you're going to expect to come in and hold down that right wing back spot?
Yeah, I think he's got to be. I think you can't have that turnover of player from Semedo to Hoover. Again, as much as I talked him up based on Saturday, it's still a massive drop off in caliber of player. So I think with that sign-in, certainly like Molawolfi as well, they've been purchased to start because they've got to replace high caliber guys who were playing week in, week out on last year's team.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about him. He seems to have the profile, and he was real quick to jump on board. I hate this that people are like, oh, he's the seventh choice, blah, blah, blah. Well, that doesn't mean he's not going to be a good addition, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, the counterpoint is that it means that Wolves are aiming high, maybe too high. And so, they're asking these players to come who realistically are, looking at Champions League clubs or whatever, and then you work your way down. So, I mean, and I don't know anything about the inner workings of the transfer strategy. So, like the scenario I just painted might seem a bit silly, but, I don't see anything about the way that it's developed that makes me want to dismiss it immediately. If we had gone to him first and he said yes, would people have said that we weren't aiming high enough? So, it's I need to see the guy play first, and more than just YouTube compilations.
Yeah, the YouTube, man, that can really paint a false picture.
But he also fits the mold, of what Vitor's looking for. He's a taller wing back at 6'1". I still wonder what we're going to do come the Afghan Cup this year. With
we're totally screwed come January.
But we got to get there, and but yeah, it's. I think he's going to be a really interesting addition if he does bring that type of speed, and it does have some sort of end product. He's 23, so it helps that he's younger and he's not a veteran. But we could, as they use the old saying, we could use some old heads on this club, because not only do they, with Tom King leaving, there's another one. Leadership's probably lacking at this point. Somebody that can work the dressing room and definitely the bench. But it's good to see them at least vest somebody that's got some potential, despite the fact that we need impact players right now.
I will say, when I saw he was 23, I felt really good at me setting the line at 1.5 for signings over 23 years old. This bookmaker knows what he's doing. So Vitor said after the match, Pep came up to him, and I'm going to paraphrase here. Pep basically was like, I hope you guys are bringing 3 or 4 people in because you're pretty fucked otherwise because your squad's not up to par. Again, I paraphrase. It's probably about what it was. Paul, what did you think about Vitor kind of disclosing Pep's thoughts on the squad?
Like that one's a little odd one, but you never know how these come across with the foreign broadcasts and things like that, and what he was saying in that context versus what he's come out with himself and shared. So I think it's a broader argument. It's a broader issue of him putting it out there that this is what he's looking for. This is what he really needs. I don't get the feeling that he's putting these sound bites out there in order to make excuses. And I think by and large, you can certainly look at that team on Saturday and see potentially where those players are coming in, either to start or to challenge for a start off the bench. So I don't think he's saying anything particular that certainly any of the fan base doesn't agree with.
Yeah, I completely agree. What were your thoughts, Chris?
You know what, man? You already used the one F-bomb, so I'm not going to go there.
No, we've thrown E's on here plenty of times.
Okay, so I just don't want the FCC coming after you and me. But anyways, you know, this annoys the hell out of me because you rarely ever see this in the NFL. If you ever do, it's during the preseason. Bill Belichick used to do it when talking to other head coaches and one-on-ones and in very close proximity. And, you know, the media would catch wind about it every once in a while, but it always happened the preseason of the regular season. This is a regular season game. Now, as much as we would say it's a preseason, it goes to show you that Pep's thoughts are, man, this is a team that really used to challenge us. Now they're way the hell down here. I heard 3 times on Sirius XM on the FC channel today, on the football channel today, of how lowly the Wolves are anticipated to be, how low expectations are amongst the league for Wolves this season. That's terrible. Also, we've seen Fosun and Jeff Shee get rid of managers for being disrespectful and not basically, you know, with the Chinese perception, one of their pillars is honor, okay? It's so dishonorable that we're basically taking hand-me-downs from the Man Cities, the Liverpools, whoever we can get to come to step and wear the gold and black. And we feel like the kid that is getting the losing college football team's shirt at the end of the bowl game. We feel like the homeless guy that gets slipped a $2 bill because we're holding a sign out on the curb. It's terrible. I hate it because we as fans that live in the States, we don't invest our money or time, and the fans especially that have grown up for generations going to these games, they don't invest their time, their money, and things that they do to watch a shit product. And that's basically what Pep Guardiola just called us. And how Jeff Shee doesn't see that, it's just beyond me. Maybe he needs to get his glasses checked. I have no clue. But it's just
that costs money, Chris. He's not going to get his vision checked.
I exactly, and it's just deeply frustrating as all hell because they have no problem with it, and it goes back to what I've said all along. This is an problem with an investment company running this club because all they look at is that Premier League money and nothing else. 17th is as good as 8th for them, and they don't care. They don't have ambition, and I think it just summarized it with what Pep's post-game comments were to Vitor.
Yeah, again, we don't expect to be getting in the players. So Pep also saying that it's like, yeah, but you have unlimited funds, homeboy. Like, yeah, it's easy to be like, oh, I hope you're bringing in 3 or 4 more players. To them, that's $200 million. You know, for us, that's $50 million. So you do have to take it with a grain of salt, but it does feel embarrassing that a team that is probably considered one of the favorites for the title is like, boy, I hope you guys bring in some people because y'all are shit right now. Now, there are a few guys who have flat out said no. Even Uncle George tried to get involved, and they're just saying no to the Wolves project. What do you think, Paul, Jeff Shee is trying to pitch these guys right now? Because he made it clear last year, if you want to go to Europe or challenge for trophies, Wolves may not be for you. So what do you think when Jeff Shee goes in, he says to these players to try and bring them in?
I think originally it used to be a nice fancy dinner at Fume, and now it's a budget lunch at Nando's.
Does he even take him to Spoons for some pints? I mean, those are good priced pints by American standards.
But potentially could be an early breakfast with a pint of Guinness.
Oh, I wanted to get in on this one because I think he offers them to see the Forbidden City, and you don't have to go to China. You get your own video game console, a couple of remotes, a couple of video games, and if this fails, well, hell, you can join our esports team. That's fine too.
What do you think, Danny? You think he talks about atoms and we are bugs and stuff?
Yeah, how good is Jackson Chuchua at chess? No, I mean, I think what's interesting is that I think, previously there may have been a way that you could spin it. Like, we are reliably looking at, qualifying for Europe. And that's a big stage for you to be on if we were to get there. I mean, that's a huge selling point. Apart from just wanting to win things, these are athletes who probably feel very competitive and would like to win things for the sake of just winning them. But also, just like us being in Europa League once, puts all these players on a different stage and opens up options for their career. And we saw how that goes. And then later it may have been more, like, we'll look at these players who have moved on to these bigger clubs, and that can be you too, because Wolves are still a place where we will get some results, and that will also put you on a different kind of stage. And I mean, I think that this is part of the sort of general anxiety that fans have right now about the direction, even if we don't necessarily know, again, the sort of inner workings. You're essentially, I'm spinning this whole question in, I don't know what Jeff Shee says to them, but this is like what gives us anxiety, is that now it feels like the pitch is just like, come here, play above the level of the team currently so that you can go somewhere. I mean, that's like what happened with both Ryan Aït-Nouri and Cunha, is that people will look at Wolves and say, oh, that team is kind of only okay, but these players look really good. And like, that can be you, is like, you'll be the one who looks good on this team, and then somebody will pick you up later. Which just does not feel, obviously, very something to be proud of, but also it just seems like it's a sort of a business practice where you are sort of bound to eventually be defeated by the business practice itself.
I do feel like if the recruiting squad consisted of me, Chris, and Paul, we would get these players on board, because you'd have Paul on the marketing side. He'd know the stuff. You'd have me on the PR side. I'd know how to spin it. And you'd have Chris, who could probably sell a glass of water to somebody at a water treatment plant. Like, I feel like we could really sell, because we love Wolverhampton so much, and we love Wolves. And by God, it's a World Cup year. This should be the easiest year to recruit those fringe guys. That's what's blowing my mind. It drives me crazy. Anyways. Another guy who we may have to replace, because boy, we're good at getting rid of players, but heaven forbid we're bringing them in. Hwang Hee-chan is reportedly being looked at with Palace, which you're like, maybe not, whatever. And then Matt Hobbs got named sporting director. Paul, what do you think of that?
Yeah, it came out the blue, kind of the Matt Hobbs stuff. I thought he might be on more of an extended period of gardening leave, or have a good 6 months away after coming out such a high profile role. But it's an interesting move. I think it goes potentially to paint a picture of potentially the talent that we had there with him that slipped through the cracks potentially. So I think going to a team like Palace, again, comparatively, we like to be pitched against these types of teams in terms of overall worth and sporting achievement and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how he does with a relatively similar budget. What direction they go in, whether he continues to unearth some gems from South America that instead of coming to Molineux, they now end up in London.
So finally, in some good news for us US fans, Premier League Mornings Live is coming back. They announced on Sunday it was going to be in Kansas City, which will host some World Cup games and is one of the biggest spots to watch U.S. men's national team games. I will be going. David Copey and his wife, Kristen, from New York Wolves will be going. And I know XXX Sexy Sexual himself, Todd DeWitt from Minnesota, are going. Hopefully some other people go. Chris, you may be trying to make it. Come on, get that kid some frequent flyer miles.
I've got a convention the week before, and then my missus is out of town that week. So definitely going to try to make it. I don't know if
nobody said you had to bring the family, Chris.
we love everybody from the Wolves family that we've had the opportunity to meet. Everybody's always so gracious, fun to hang out with. Josh, you included.
Thanks.
Love tipping it back a couple of pints with you. But I don't know if Kansas City is really on my bucket list of spots to visit. That's kind of a tough sell there. Sorry to everybody in the Midwest, but here in sunny South Florida, it's just not exactly one of our destinations.
I know we were hoping Texas, Houston would be one, but with it being into September, I do think it's still a little hot here. I've never been to Kansas City, and so, yeah, while it's not one that I would necessarily put on my bucket list, I'm still, going to Kansas City. I'm bringing my lovely wife with me, who also is not a fan of Bovril or whatever the F you call that stuff. What is it, Paul? Bovril? Shit.
Bovril, yeah.
Bovril. Saturday, we're back at it again, trying to get over this 4-0 disaster class. It's going to be a 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central kickoff away at Bournemouth. Of course, we cannot find any Bournemouth fans in the U.S., so it's just us talking about it. Paul, what are your thoughts heading into this one?
I'm relatively not buoyant about it, but I'm certainly anticipating the challenge of a team that I met looked really good in parts on their start of the season away at Anfield, even though they came up with a loss. They look pretty tasty at times, but these, again, a team like Bournemouth, lots of transition on their playing staff. You never know exactly how it's going to bed in at that early stage of the season. There's certainly worse places, tougher places to go to potentially. I'm just hoping that the transition that they're going through right at the start of the season might mean it's a good time to come up against them.
So, Wolves for this match. What do you think the odds are, Chris? I'm guessing you haven't looked at them. What do you think the money line odds for Wolves against Bournemouth, at Bournemouth?
I'm not exactly a gambler. I think you know that. So I'm going to say it's 2-1 Bournemouth right now. That's probably what I'm going with.
No, it's worse. It is plus 320, which basically means 3.2 to 1. That's rough. At Bournemouth to be plus 320, guys, that basically is really, really bad. That's almost like Florida going up against Alabama, Chris. I just wanted to see his face.
Switch the camera because the finger was coming up
there. Danny, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're underrating our chances a bit, which is probably pretty understandable given, just the general mood around the two teams, even just in the wider, football community. I think, like you alluded to earlier, a lot of pundits, really have no particular faith in Wolves. And although I don't feel equipped to necessarily, argue against that point of view, I do think that it's based on just some very top line issues like, Cunha's gone and what have they really done in the transfer window, and preseason looked bad and whatever. But we all know that preseason doesn't matter a ton. And Bournemouth have lost basically their whole back line from last year. So like Paul said, I think it's a good time to come up against them. I think the most interesting part will be obviously, I guess, what we touched on already, who actually starts. Will Arias get a start? That would be interesting. And the other thing is just it's a smaller pitch with the fans right up against the pitch, and how that will play on the match. I mean, I can't say that it gives me a ton of hope, because I feel like one of our real weaknesses right now is just it feels like a squad that has not got a ton of belief in itself. Mm-hmm. and I don't know that kind of pressure is going to help them. But they sort of pulled it together last year before Cunha lost his head. So it could be an interesting match, to be honest.
Okay, real quick, yes or no, along with who he'd start in place of. Does Arias start on Saturday, Paul?
Yeah. In place of Bellegarde.
Danny?
Yeah, same answer.
Chris, same answer?
Same.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Manetzi did well enough, although we need to update that. Okay, so let's look at the predictions from last week. We all predicted a really bad match. We all got a point. All right. Yay, we have more points than Wolves on the year. That's wonderful. So, Chris, we're going to start it off with you. At Bournemouth, what is your prediction?
So, this game, and we all know this, these first 5 games after Man City are massive, because I believe it's going to dictate the rest of the season and even going into the January transfer window. And to speak to kind of Danny's point, that confidence, I don't know if you can really put the odds on the mirror and kind of do the Rocky Balboa and rip it and shred it and not care and try to build confidence. I think Vitor is going to try to look at the positives out of City, saying we competed against one of the best teams, the most elite teams in the world, and try to build upon that, where they got to the 20-minute mark and they looked really good for about 15 minutes there. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, and I think we're going to see the Grand Strand put one in the back of the net.
1-1 draw. Danny?
Yeah, I don't know. I think for the sake of our prediction league, my answer is that it's going to be Bournemouth 2, Wolves 1. I have a feeling that Wolves can get something down there, and I don't know. But I'm not that bold, so I'm going to say a 2-1 loss.
2-1 loss. Alex will give us his a little bit later. Paul, what do you think?
I'm bringing a little positivity. So remember two seasons ago, a certain someone off the bench for a 2-1 late winner? Could happen again with Sasa coming to...
Big Sassy.
God. Yeah, so Bournemouth 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2.
Ooh, I like it. I probably will not be putting on the plus 320, but the Wolves 2-way, which means a draw or a win, is minus 110. It does sound pretty sweet to me. I kind of agree with Chris, 1-1 draw. And then on Tuesday, that's right. Tuesday is a cup game, but we're going to be talking about that next week. So get ready for that against West Ham, who may be worse than Wolves.
No Stupid Questions is brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Whether you're toasting some Vino de Vitor or winding down after a day of work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of wine country with each sip. Now at esfuerzowines.com, you can use the promo code VITOR, that's VITOR, at checkout to receive a 30% discount off your order. And don't forget to try the special edition 1-pack wines to show your passion and support for Wolves with each glass. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their product responsibly and in moderation.
It is that time of the show, our favorite portion, because it opens up to have you involved. Get in touch. We will answer your questions about anything to do with this wonderful club, Wolverhampton Wanderers. You can submit them on the socials or by emailing hello@wholelotofwolves.com or right here live in the chat if you are live on the stream right now. Segment is sponsored by our friends at Espresso Wines. Remember that 30% off your order when using the coupon code Vitor, checking out at espressowines.com. So we kept a little of the speculation back for this particular segment because a popular subject this week has been a certain Fabio Silva. And the first one is Stone Cold Strand Larson on X, who asked Josh, what is the line for Fabio to stay this season?
Because there's only 1 year in his contract, I had to take that into consideration when I was sitting there crunching the odds. I still say the chances of him leaving are pretty good. I'm going to say minus 350. So very good. However, they're now saying transfer fee of 25 to 30 million euros is too low. I don't know about that. I am actually going to put the over-under for euros for a Fabio sale at 27.5, not counting add-ons. I do think there'll be some of that. What do you think, Chris? Over or under?
I think it's going to be under. I think at this point, Jeff is going to be willing to take whatever the hell they can get. And yes, they're going to value him up until that last week of the transfer window. I do go back to the statement of, Jeff is really close with Fabio, and I think he's protecting him a little bit just because he's a Jeff favorite. But I think they would take 20, 22, somewhere in that range. The problem is, once again, will they wait to sell him to reinvest that money? That's why they got to sell him now, take what they can get, and move him on. I know he wants AS Roma. Dortmund's in the mix, but whoever has the most money, I think Wolves are going to take and try to get it done with Fabio.
What do you think, Danny? Over under 27.5 euros, million euros, obviously.
I have to go under.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't quite be convinced that the market is there the way that it has seemed to be. I don't know. There's something about the rumors that feels very agent talk. And so that makes me think that the numbers that have been thrown out so far are kind of meaningless. It doesn't mean that there isn't interest and that, he won't end up moving on. But, the numbers that have to go into those tweets, I feel like they just get made up when it's just an agent trying to make something happen. And it doesn't even have to be Fabio's agent. It can be, a surrogate of Jeff Shee or someone, trying to get these things to move in the way that they want them to.
Paul, what do you think about it?
I think we might be around the late teens even, but then some very rich additions off the back of it to get it up based on appearances and goals and all of that. I think we'd be extremely fortunate to get in the 20s, 25 as an outright sale. So I think there's some probably negotiations going around just to try and get the best overall package if it is a smaller upfront fee, but a bigger fee overall if he does hit all of those milestones.
And I think Drew, Paul, had really the best question of the week.
Yeah, real good extension on the subject. Drew Freakin on X, frequent guest. So he asks if he's not sold this window when his value is higher than any other time, based on that contract length and his performances whilst out on loan, is that a bigger misstep than his initial signing?
So this is going to surprise a lot of people that I'm about to say this. I think that this would be probably the second worst blunder in Fosun history than it was to sell my boy Adama when he was valued at 50 million and there was offers for that. I hate it. I know that's stunning to say, but no, if this would absolutely be worse than the initial signing, especially with only 1 year on the contract. If they don't sell him, I don't know what we're doing.
I'm going to slightly disagree because I think it was that type of signing wrong signing, wrong place, wrong time that put such a spanner in the works in terms of PSR and the whole impact that that £35 million has had for such little output. And it's not just him. Here I'm putting in like the Guedes fee and those types of deals thrown in. So it for that outlay at the time where we needed a totally different profile of forward, I think that is what makes the initial signing much worse regardless of what happens.
And this is what drives me nuts about people that are like, Uncle George will save us. Guys, we talked about what our pitch was for Wolves. It was way different when we were bringing in Neves and Moutinho and Jota. Way different pitch. It was, Wolves are going, we're going to compete with Man City. Now it's like, So you got that. And then let's remember one of Uncle George's biggest specials he delivered was Fabio Silva. And this is not Fabio's fault. He was a super young kid. What was he, 20? 19? Like, that's absurd
19,
to put that pressure in. Just bad luck with Raul getting hurt. I don't blame Fabio at all, but that was a stinker all the way around by a lot of people.
But I think ultimately Mendes, Man City, I mean, you can name a lot. They just see Jeff as a sucker. I mean, coming out with that article, if you expect us to win trophies, Wolves may not be the club for you. I mean, it epitomizes it. Don't be sad, mate, in the email to Manny. The guy has made more missteps. It's just been unbelievable. And people take notice. I mean, it's not just agents. The clubs do it. They just see Jeff as a sucker. And I just don't understand, other than delivering that Premier League money, why Fosun, for the embarrassment that he has simply caused, it may not circulate that around China, but my God, it's everywhere else. They just know it. And so the Fabio thing doesn't surprise me when they initially signed him, because Jeff was feeling good about himself being in the Premier League, but I think Mendes saw him as a sucker. And I think, to your point, Josh, expecting Uncle George to come and save us again, it's clearly not working. So there's one common denominator there, and that's Jeff Shee.
Fabio was always going to be Jeff Shee's lottery ticket. That was the one where he thought, oh, I'm going to get this guy and develop him, and he's going to be worth $100 million, and I'm going to be the golden child and stuff. Look, lottery tickets don't always work out great. And unfortunately, Wolves weren't necessarily. We're not one of the clubs that can make $30 million, $31 million gambles. We're just not. We're not. Have to be smarter with it.
That was No Stupid Questions, brought to you by Espresso Wines. Remember, head to espressowines.com. Use that coupon code Vitor at checkout. That's 30% off your order.
I'm out of whiskey. Chris, are in a couple weeks here, me and you, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So you're going to be rooting for Alabama in the season opener?
Not a chance in hell.
Over Florida State?
Yeah, no. I'd rather the win stay in state. At least it gives the Knowles one win this year, but that's about it. Just because it's the SEC, we're not friends. Don't go there.
But you hate Florida State, do you not?
I do, but I hate Bama worse. I mean, Florida State would actually have to stand a chance. I mean, no, that's not even worth it. I want to bring up.
Clearly, you have not gotten over us making Tebow cry, so that's a shame.
No, definitely not over that, by the way. But I do want to bring up one point to remember, so we can reconvene this at the end of the season. 42 goals. That's the magic number to stay up, and you have to ask yourself, goals. That's how many. For the last 3 seasons, if a team has scored 42 goals, they've managed to stay up. Can we score 42 goals this year collectively? That's a big question.
We have lost another goal threat with Tom King as well, so it's even better than it was losing Cunha and Atnuri.
Chris, how can they find you in the next election? How can they vote for you?
You got to move to Fort. You got to move here to Oakland Park here in South Florida. If you end up doing that, let me know.
Elon disagrees. There's probably ways, but go on.
But you can find me on Twitter. It says it right there, Chris Fischer, with the underscore in the middle. I appreciate you gentlemen having me on once again. It's always fun to talk with you.
We are back at some point next week based on scheduling, because we're going to be reviewing that Bournemouth game, and it's going to be at some point a quick turnaround to talk about that West Ham League Cup fixture, which will be on the Tuesday ahead of a home clash against Everton the following Saturday. So it's thanks to Danny on the socials, Alex producing, and our audience, as this show is for you. You'll be doing us a huge favour by and helping a whole lot of Wolves to grow if you're able to give us a 5-star review on your podcast listening platform, along with subscribing to Whole Lot of Wolves on YouTube, liking all of our content that we put out there. So everyone, as we walk in fields of gold, let's all say proudly, up the Wolves.